Our weekly immigration news roundup is brought to you by the law firm of Figueroa and Associates. For consultation on any immigration or legal matter, please call 855-768-8845. That's 855-768-8845. For full stories and more immigration news, visit www.theimmigrantsjournal.com. That's www.theimmigrantsjournal.com.
Hello, my name is Mary Campbell, legal assistant at the law firm of Figueroa and Associates, and your presenter with this week's immigration news. We begin with Biden announces immigration protections for up to 550,000 spouses and children of U.S. citizens. On June 18, the Biden administration announced two major new policies, which may help provide streamlined paths to legal status for certain long-time undocumented immigrants. The first policy will allow undocumented spouses of U.S. citizens who have been in the country to apply for parole in place, a protection against deportation, which will also allow many to access an easier path to permanent resident status. The second policy will allow individuals with DACA and undocumented immigrants who have graduated college to apply for certain employment-based non-immigrant visas more easily. Individuals who are married to U.S. citizens are generally eligible to obtain permanent resident status if their spouse applies on their behalf. However, for individuals who are in the country already following an unlawful entry, the process can be more complicated. They are generally required to leave the country to get permanent resident status and risk the possibility of being barred from re-entering for years, possibly permanently. The Biden administration's action will let most people in this situation apply for green cards without ever leaving the country and facing the possibility of separation. The White House estimates that at least 500,000 undocumented spouses of U.S. citizens may qualify for this status, as well as 50,000 stepchildren of U.S. citizens. Immigrant workers help Florida thrive. Anti-immigrant policies threaten that, in 2022, more than 1 in 5 Florida residents were immigrants. In that same year, immigrants in Florida were over 14% more likely than their U.S.-born neighbors to be of working age, positioning them to actively participate in the labor force and economy. And they did just that. Immigrants contributed $12.0 billion in state and local taxes, punching above their weight as they made up only 26.6% of the state's workforce. Despite these contributions, Governor Ron DeSantis and other state leaders continue to support policies that harm immigrants, their families, and the Florida community at large. These policies also exacerbate workforce shortages, resulting in undue harm to businesses and instilling fear and uncertainty among the immigrant community. Meanwhile, in New York City, why are so many migrant kids selling candy in New York City? Lack of child care, survey says. The vast majority of migrant vendors with children, often seen peddling fruit cups and candy on the subway, say they are unable to get other work because of a lack of childcare. According to a new survey across New York City, slightly more than 8 in 10 migrant vendors with children told volunteers with the aid group Al-Ghumdiya that they lacked sufficient childcare, the survey found. More than a third of the 75 vendors surveyed were women under the age of 25 and 75% were from Ecuador. Another 17% were men, many of them single fathers. Nearly all of the respondents, 93%, said they hadn't been assisted by any organization, and less than a third lived in city shelters. Al-Ghumdiya volunteers surveyed migrant vendors with children from March 31 to May 31. In other news, LGBTQ asylum seekers face risks under restrictive border policies, Human Rights First report illuminates. While the Biden administration recently announced a number of long-awaited immigration actions that will protect many undocumented spouses of U.S. citizens, as well as some DACA recipients, restrictive border policy announced earlier this month takes a step backward on our obligations under U.S. and international asylum law by further endangering already vulnerable LGBT people seeking safety. A new report from Human Rights First reveals. The June 4 proclamation arbitrarily bars access to asylum to most people entering the United States at or between ports of entry without a CBP-1 appointment. Human Rights First researcher Christina Asensio writes, that asylum entry ban exacerbates and adds new barriers that further endanger LGBTQI+ and other people seeking asylum. USCIS extends employment authorization documents under temporary protected status designations of El Salvador, Honduras, Nepal, Nicaragua, and Sudan. USCIS is extending the validity of certain employment authorization documents, EADs, issued to temporary protected status, TPS, beneficiaries under the designations of El Salvador, Honduras, Nepal, Nicaragua, and Sudan through March 9, 2025. We will mail eligible TPS beneficiaries under these designations a Form I-797, Notice of Action, notifying them of the extension. If you are an existing TPS beneficiary under one of these designations, and you have not yet re-registered for TPS under the most recent extension for that designation, you must submit Form I-821, Application for Temporary Protected Status, during the current re-registration period to keep your TPS benefits. USCIS extends the grace periods for Form I-914 and Form I-918 Supplement B. For Form I-914 and its supplements, the grace period will now extend to August 27, 2024. For Form I-918 Supplement B, the grace period will now extend to November 11, 2024. Until then, we will accept either the 4/1/24 or the 12/6/21 edition. Starting November 12, 2024, we will accept only the 4/1/24 edition of Form I-918, Supplement B. These forms are generally completed over a period of many months. The original 60-day effective date and 60-day grace periods may not have provided enough advance notice for those in the process of preparing these forms to transition to the new versions without considerable burden. Finally, after months of campaigning and extensive outreach efforts to voters across the state, New Yorkers have made their voices heard at the ballot box. During this competitive primary season, immigration emerged as a top issue for voters across the state. The election results reflect New Yorkers' strong support for our immigrant communities, emphasizing the importance of electing leaders who prioritize the diverse needs of every individual in our state. Thank you.
Our weekly immigration news roundup is brought to you by the law firm of Figueroa & Associates. For consultation on any immigration or legal matter, please call 855-768-8845. That's 855-768-8845. For full stories and more immigration news, visit www.theimmigrantsjournal.com. That's www.theimmigrantsjournal.com.